Hello and welcome to yet another video on margin notes presented by your mentor Vivek. Margin notes episode 9, commentary, not a summary, link in the description. And before anything else, a date. This article is from November 2025, which makes it the oldest in this whole series by about 9 months. In this field, that is a long time. Several things in here that read as overclaims today were much closer to the consensus when it was written, and I want that on the record before I disagree with any of it. It opens on a scene you will recognize. 2 in the morning, 3 coffees deep, explaining to an AI what you want to build. For the 5th time, it forgets the context. It misunderstands the architecture. It implements features you never asked for. And his question is the right one. What if instead of treating it like something that needs constant hand-holding, we treated it like a senior engineer who actually reads the specification? And as an introduction, this is genuinely good. If you have never encountered any of this, 5 minutes here gets you the shape of it. His mental model is 4 words and it is a clean one. Structure, a defined multi-phase workflow instead of improvising. Memory, context that persists across the whole project rather than one conversation. Discipline, guardrails against what he calls the overeager AI problem, which is the nicest name anybody has given to a model adding things you did not ask for. And flexibility, in that none of it is tied to a particular stack. That is a good 4-word summary of why any of this exists. And I would hand it to somebody who asked me what the fuss was about. But the part that has aged best is his clarification examples. And I want to give them real credit. He builds a small task board, and the clarification step comes back asking, what happens if the saved file is corrupted? And should the identifiers be auto-incrementing integers or UUIDs? Neither of those is in the original request. Both of them become bugs. And notice this is exactly the mechanism from episode 4. Where a clarification round asked about concurrency. And that is what caught a refund bug. Different author, different month, same finding. The value is in the questions, not the tooling. Now, 2 claims that I do not think survive contact with what we have measured since. The first is a heading in the article. The context window problem is solved. His reasoning is that the project principles file gets injected into every interaction. So the model never forgets your standards. And that part is true and genuinely useful. But solved is a strong word. In episode 6, we had actual numbers from somebody who measured it. Context is finite. And when it runs out, compaction cost him between 3 and 12 minutes each time. A file injected into every single turn does not create context, it consumes it. So what is solved is the forgetting your standards problem, which is real and worth having. What is not solved is the context window, which is the same size it was. The second is bigger. He writes that if you want to change how the thing works, you do not edit the source file. You edit the specification and let the model refactor the code to match. Now go back to the taxonomy from episode 6. That is the spec as source level, the one where the human never touches the code at all. And here is what strikes me. Every single field report in this series, the ones with actual scars, describes people reviewing implementations, editing code, and reconciling diffs by hand. Episode 8 ended on a version of the same claim as a closing flourish. Here it is, load bearing. It is presented as the normal way of working. And as far as I can tell, nobody is working that way yet. And now the one I would most want a beginner to read carefully. He describes the implementation step, running the tests, and when one fails, reading the error, fixing the code, and rerunning autonomously. That is real, it does work, and it is genuinely impressive to watch. But think about what has just happened. The thing that wrote the code also decided the code was finished, using tests that it may also have written. On spec signals, we measured that 91% of resolved agent breakdowns needed a human to notice. And that inaccurate self-reporting is one of the two failure categories that is growing rather than shrinking. A green test suite that the agent repaired by itself is precisely where the tests passing and the code being correct can quietly come apart. And the framing that this is the end of vibe coding. I understand the rhetorical appeal, and I do not think it is right. Vibe coding is not ended. It has a correct domain, and somebody in this very series put a number on it. In episode 4, the same endpoint took about 10 minutes vibe coded and about 40 minutes through a full specification workflow. For a one-off script or a Friday prototype, 10 minutes is the correct answer. In the hands-on series on this channel, I made the same argument at length. The honest version of his headline is not the end of vibe coding. It is know which one you are doing and why. And I want to be fair about the genre because it would be easy not to be. This is a 5-minute introduction. It is not a field report. It does not claim to be one, and introductions are allowed to be enthusiastic. That is how anybody gets started with anything. It also contains a line that most of the enthusiastic writing leaves out, that none of this replaces the need for engineering knowledge because you still have to know what to build. He is not overselling out of carelessness. He is writing a doorway, and it is a decent doorway. So what do you take? Use it as an on-ramp rather than a manual. If you have a colleague who has never heard of any of this, this is a good 5 minutes to hand them. It is short, it is clear, and the forward model will stick. But send them a field report immediately afterwards. Episode 4 with the refund bug, episode 6 with the compaction numbers. So the enthusiasm arrives with a counterweight attached, which is the whole reason this series exists. And take one thing he flags that I did not expect to find in the oldest article in the queue. He mentions an analysis step that checks whether the implementation has drifted away from the specification and flags changes that were never in the requirements at all. That is the drift problem, the one this entire series keeps circling, the one episode 6 named Spec 1's development, being taken seriously in 2025. He did not have the numbers we have now. He was pointed at the right thing anyway. So here is where I land. This is a good doorway, written before most of the evidence existed, and it should be read as one. Take the forward model, because it is the cleanest short answer to what all this is for. Take the clarification questions, because they are the part that actually catches bugs. Qualify the word solved wherever you meet it. And do not accept a test suite that the agent repaired by itself as proof that anything works. The full article is by OmarEbnElKhattab Hosney on Medium. The link is in the description. Go and read it, and then go and read a field report. If you found this useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for patient listening, and see you in the next video. Until then, peace out.